Hello there and welcome back to my channel. This is LiseLight. My name is Lise. I'm a Danish knitter based in Copenhagen. And today is part 2 of my small series about planning the best knitting trip to Copenhagen. In part 1, I went through all of the yarn stores where you find them. And also I want to recommend right away, I'll link the video in the card and down below, but also I did a PDF accompanying the first video that might be useful for what I'm going to go through in this video. So you might want to go and download that. There is a link and I'll put it in the description below as well. It doesn't cost you anything. It's you sign up for a newsletter that's not even really active yet as I record this video, but it's a PDF where I gathered all the addresses of the yarn stores in the central part of Copenhagen, 22 in total. And in the video, you can see I talk about the different places and it gives you a lay of the land, and that might be useful for what I'm about to talk to you about today. So welcome. Also, before we go any further, if you like this type of content, please subscribe. It helps the channel out a lot. I really appreciate it. And thank you for all the lovely comments on the first Copenhagen video. Also, if you are going to go to Copenhagen at some point or thinking about planning it, you might want to save this video so it's easier for you to find it for future reference, because I've tried to do these videos as useful as possible for you if you are not so familiar with the Copenhagen area and Denmark as a whole. So I'll go through different areas and hopefully give you a lot of tips. So first video was about the yarn stores. This video is going to be about all the things that will make your trip a lot more pleasant and enjoyable for you. So yeah, let's just jump into it. Also, all the links and stuff that I talk about today, I'm not going to do a PDF with those because a lot of them are different, like little restaurants, cafes, places, and all of that might change. So I don't think it makes sense. But what I'll do is when I talk about a place, I'll put the card up on the screen with the name on it so you can Google it yourself when you get here, so you can find out the opening hours and so forth. But sometimes some of these little places, they open, they close, you know how it is. So the yarn stores made more sense because a lot of those are not going anywhere, fortunately. So that's great news. So I'll just go through all of this and let's take a look at it. But before we actually really start, I think we should do the Danish word of the day, which obviously has to be Copenhagen. And that's the name of Copenhagen. I thought maybe it's fun for you to get an idea of how we say it in Denmark, because I've heard all kinds of different variations. Sometimes people say Copenhagen, which is what I would call it in English. But I hear also people calling Copenhagen. And I don't know what that is, because it sounds kind of German, but the Germans wouldn't say it that way anyway. So well, they would say Copenhagen. But it's just a weird mix of things. But in Danish, the word that you see on the screen is Copenhagen. So it's kind of a long, and we say it fast, so we say Copenhagen. Copenhagen. That's the name of the city. So you can maybe practice it. It doesn't matter if you say it one way or the other, but I just thought that would be maybe fun for you to know that. So that's and there's going to be a lot of other tongue twister words during this video. So I'll be sure to put them up on the screen so that even if I explain to you what it is, when you Google it, when you get here, you have the right spelling and all this stuff for you. So first of all, I want to talk about how to get around in Copenhagen. And the most obvious, the smartest, cheapest way for you would be, in my view, to get a metro and bus pass. And you can actually buy like 24-hour tickets where you can travel as much as you want in all of the public transportation in Copenhagen. And just so you know, it's very efficient. We had the metro built not that many years ago. We haven't always had a metro system, but now we don't understand how we would live without it, because it's actually, well, it keeps expanding, but it's basically sort of like a circle around the city, and then all kinds of trips outwards too. So by connecting in the different metro systems, you can get pretty much everywhere. And the smartest thing for you, for most of you, is when you arrive at the airport in Copenhagen, where everybody comes out. There's just one place where everybody arrives. There'll be signs for you. You can go take a cab if there's parking. If for some reason somebody's picking you up, that's where they would be. But if you continue through the hall, there'll be signs for metro and train station. And the smart thing is, once you go down that route in the airport, on your right hand side, there'll be a bunch of different automats for the train system. And usually there's also a person from the metro system there to guide you. But what you can actually do right there is, instead of spending money on a cab going into Copenhagen, which is really expensive, you can actually buy a pass there that will, and if you know you're going to be in Copenhagen for, let's say, 5 days, you can buy the pass that lasts you all of those 5 days. And it actually, if you choose the right one, it will include your trip to and from the airport and all over inner city. But you can see on a map how much it covers. That's usually the best bet, because it gives you the freedom to jump on and off the trains, the metros, all this stuff, instead of having to deal with how to get around. So that's my probably biggest recommendation, because you got to remember, we don't have Uber in Denmark. So you need to take the cabs if you want to be driven around. And they're very expensive. So even the trip from the airport into inner city is very expensive. And if there's heavy traffic, it's actually faster to go by metro. So there's a metro station right there at the airport, and it'll take you straight into the center of the city. You could do that and then actually get a cab from there if you need to go to your hotel. So that's what usually most people do these days, because it's actually quite a hassle. Unless you arrive very late in the evening, it can be kind of nice to just jump in a cab. But other than that, it's usually faster to go by metro. So that's what mainly that's what I do all the time. So that's my recommendation number one of how to get around. So it's completely stress-free for you. You know, you can just hop on a bus or take the metro or whatever you like. And then there's bikes. I need to probably phrase this carefully, but I'm using my bike every day. It's and what you need to know, because I know when you see the images, the videos from Denmark, and if you've been here yourself, you will have noticed all the bikes. And I know that sometimes people can get a little bit of a romanticized idea of what it would be like to go hop on your bike and the freedom, and it is great. I love it. But my best advice for you is, if you're not an experienced bike rider in cities, because it doesn't really count if you're used to going on a relaxing stroll on your bike in the forest or something like that, it will not be fun for you, basically. I mean, in Copenhagen, I've tried to insert a little film when I'm talking about this, so you can get a little bit of an idea. And when I took this, it's a little bit shaky handheld because it's difficult to, I don't have a holder on my bike for my phone. So I was being a little bit careful. And the film you see it wasn't even rush hour at that point. This was a regular hour during the day, and you can see how much bike traffic there is. Even though the bike paths are really wide, it's stuffed with people. You can actually have almost lines, like backed up traffic sort of on the bike paths. And if you're not familiar with riding a bike, if you don't feel safe and secure on a bike, if you're not used to using it in heavy traffic, it's scary. And to be honest, it is kind of dangerous then. I would also not recommend that you jump on a bike and not wear any protection, which of course you don't bring a helmet to Denmark. That would be kind of crazy to fill your suitcase up with that. I basically don't recommend it, to be honest, because I've seen so many tourists, first of all, creating chaos because they're all over the place, like not being going straight on the bike paths. And to be honest, my Copenhagen fellow citizens are not always that polite if somebody is like not acting correctly on the bike path, and so you might be yelled at, which is not it's not great, but it's just the reality. Because it's kind of like if you went into heavy traffic on a freeway and you just started going back and forth and just doing your thing, people would get very upset. And it's the exact same thing. Because, of course, it's great exercise to use your bike every day, but it's more like means of transportation. And you will see people driving around with their kids on the back. I think you can see it on a little film I inserted. You see the big, heavy, they're called Christiania bikes, where they have a huge like section in front where you can bike around your kids. And that's how people pick up their kids from kindergarten in Copenhagen a lot of times. You'll also see adults driving each other around, and it's just a whole thing. And they take up a lot of space. And yeah, I just be careful. So I wouldn't throw myself into biking around if I didn't know exactly what I was doing. So just advice. I've had guests trying it out, visiting, and they didn't like it because they were kind of intimidated and scared by the speed and the hustle on those bike paths. So just beware so you don't get hurt while you're here. So that's my best advice. Okay, and also just one word. I know when you look at, probably when you start looking into touristy things about Copenhagen, they will sometimes recommend you a type, I think they call it a Copenhagen card, where a bunch of things are included in the price of that card. It's very expensive, and I checked it out for some of our friends from the US who were visiting, and I just realized it was outrageously expensive. I think the only way it would make sense if you were one of those people who want to visit like 5 museums in a day. I'm not one of those people, and they were definitely not. So we actually figured it was way more expensive for them if they had bought that pass. It includes the metro system and all that as well. But it didn't really make sense for them to do it. So just do your math and just figure you can get I'll try to insert a link to where you can see the price of the metro card by itself without any museums and whatever included. And that's the one I told you about. You can buy in the airport. So I would definitely be careful about just jumping on this good offer, because we figured there was no way they could make that it would make sense for them. They could have actually gotten into the places they wanted to see much cheaper just by buying those tickets instead of buying the whole package. So just be aware of that. Also, just in general, Copenhagen is expensive, and of course it depends on where you live. I went to San Francisco in the fall of 24, and I was actually, I thought actually the prices weren't that different from Copenhagen. So I think it depends on where you live. If you live in a place where things are cheap, some things will be very expensive in Copenhagen, other things will be more reasonable. I think eating out and coffee and that sort of stuff is usually more expensive in Copenhagen than most other places. So just be aware of that. But I have a couple of tips from that as well. If we just in general talk about shopping areas, it is, I think I mentioned it in the first video, the main walking street in Copenhagen is called Strøget. That's a tongue twister for you. Strøget means kind of like a place where you stroll, more or less. It's actually sort of feeling like it's a smaller street, but it's a wide street. There are two actually, that one that goes all the way through the city center, and then one that's going in another direction from it. But the thing is, of course, it's kind of fun to be there and look around and whatnot, but as I said in the first video, you will notice that a lot of the stores are chain stores, like stores you would find all over the place. You would find them in your own city, H&M, Zara, all this kind of stuff. So once in a while you find a small store that's different, but you will find it's not the most interesting place for me, at least. But of course, it's kind of nice to take a stroll there. If you are in the center of the city, just know that that's probably not where you find the most interesting places. So what I would recommend, if you are in the city center, go a little bit away from Strøget and down to the area that's called Pisranden. This is a really it's not a nice expression. It actually means what I just said. It's a place where back in the old days, a lot of gutter would flow down through the streets. And it was definitely not a nice area. It was kind of seedy and whatnot. It's a very pleasant place. It's small streets with a bunch of little cafes and restaurants and whatnot. And it's really, really cute. So it's right behind a part of Strøget where you find that. One thing I'll mention in particular that I think you should go to see, because then you're in the middle of this area and you can just walk around in the adjoining streets, is the oldest bakery in Copenhagen. It's actually been there. I have to check on my notes here. It's dating all the way back to 1652, which is crazy when you think about it. But it's called St. Peter's Bageri. I'll put the name up on the screen. And St. Peter's Bakery is placed in the street that's called St. Peter's Stræde. So it's a small street with that name on it. I'll put the address on the screen so you can find it. And the reason I think you need to go there is, first of all, it's kind of interesting that you have, this very old street, very old bakery. It's just nice. And it's a really good bakery. You will see that a lot of times there's a line outside to go in. And what I would recommend you to try is the famous cardamom buns. They're actually called kardemommesnore. I'll put the name on the screen as well. But I would definitely try those out. It's you can maybe compare it a little bit to you find a version with cinnamon as well. But I think the cardamom ones are so special. They're really, really good. It's kind of like a dough. You can't say it's like a croissant because it's not the same thing, but definitely has a lot of butter in the dough. I tried to bake them once and it was a lot of butter and a lot of time to do it. And then it has the buttery cinnamon or cardamom type thing and sugar on it. It's very, very good. And they're famous for theirs. So I would definitely try out that place if you're in the city center, because that's a real Copenhagen or Denmark experience. That's for sure. Okay, so that's an area where you will also find little funny stores and cute cafes and little restaurants and stuff. So it's a very quaint and cute area to walk around in. Also, Nørrebro, which again reference to the map that I gave you in the PDF. That whole area has a ton of interesting stores. It's definitely worthwhile to go out there. It's a very trendy area, so you'll find all kinds of funny little interesting stores. So I think definitely that's one of my favorite places to go for that. And then also Østerbro, the other area where also you find quite a few yarn stores, is also a good option to go, and because they have a bunch of cute stores there. It's a pretty affluent area, more or less at least, and so you will find really nice stores there as well, but all kinds of places, big and small. So I think that's pretty neat. Also, I want to mention, if some of you are into vintage shopping, there's a ton of vintage stores. You can look them up on a map. I won't go into all of them. That would take forever. But I want to mention a flea market that's taking place in the summer. I think they start this year around April, late April, that type of thing. I'll put the link, but it's called Veras Marked. And it's an outdoor flea market every Sunday during the summer half of the year. And it's actually placed a little bit of funny place where you wouldn't maybe just pass by, but you can go there by public transportation. And it's placed under a bridge, like it's not a freeway, but like a highway type, not highway, but a bigger street going over it. So it's called Under the Bridge where it is. But it's a pretty big flea market where people sell all their used stuff. So they could be, it's closed mostly. So that could be kind of fun if you're in the city to go there on a Sunday. So not a lot of tourists know about it, I think. So if you're into vintage clothing and secondhand, it could be fun to go there. So that's a recommendation also. And then I want to mention, I mean, for me, when I go to a different city, having a good cup of coffee once in a while is so important. I love coffee and I love good coffee. And I know that's one of the things where you can get a little bit shocked about the prices. In Copenhagen, that can be very, very expensive. So I've actually gathered a list of places that at the time of the recording, at least, they have a little bit of a cheaper selection of good coffee that you can buy, but you kind of need to know where these places are. So I thought I would give you that tip so that you can stock up on your caffeine while you're out and about, and maybe find those places. So one place that even a lot of Danes are not aware of. There's a small chain of, it's actually kind of a salad bar that's called We Do. And in those, most of their stores, I think there are a few that don't do coffee, but they actually have the ability to do cappuccino and whatever regular coffees you might want to buy. And they're very inexpensive compared to cafes, and it's really good coffee. They do a very good job. It's good quality coffee, and it's not widely known. Their salads aren't cheap. You could say they're okay, I think. Decent quality, but the coffee is really cheap. So if you're in a place where you can look up where those chain stores are, definitely consider grabbing your coffee at that place, because that will save you a bit of money. One of them is placed at a place called Kødbyen. It's a meat district, or used to be a meat district place, and you can definitely, there's a very industrial feel to the place. It's now stocked with a bunch of fancy restaurants and bars and all kinds of stuff. And if you're at the area, because there's a We Do right there, it's also close to a couple of the yarn stores I mentioned in the PDF, that's in the western Vesterbro part of Copenhagen, so the Copenhagen V part. It's very close to there, so you can combine that maybe. When you go into that area, there's also a place called Ismejeriet, which is where you do ice cream. They make, in my opinion, the best ice cream I have ever had, and that's hands down. Traveling all over the world and having really good ice cream, that place is the best I've ever had. It's not too sweet. It's homemade or freshly made every day. It's just so good, and it's a cute place. So I would definitely recommend. You will also see usually a big line out the door. That's basically the place to get your ice cream. So you get that little pro tip as well. Also, there's some other places. I'll put a card up with their names. A place called Mina's Coffee. That's in Nørrebro. So Copenhagen N. There's a place called, I'm looking down at my notes to remember the names. There's one called Sagi's Cafe. That's in the more in the center of the city. And then also on one of the walking streets, there's a place called Studenterhuset. So the student house, which is, they have a bunch of also different social arrangements and music and whatnot. And they have pretty good coffee. So if you're in the center of the city, you might pop by and see if that's a good bet. And then again, I can't control the prices, so whether they go up or down, who knows? But just then you have the tips. Great. Of course, there's a ton of other places for restaurants and stuff. Just look around and find out what you like the most. But it's not cheap being in Copenhagen. Lastly, I just want to give you a couple of tips for sightseeing. I'm not going to go through all the traditional sightseeing spots. You will be recommended to go there a lot when you check out Copenhagen, like the Little Mermaid, for example. It's a cute little statue, but it's very small, which for some reason people get very surprised. I don't think any Danes understand the big craziness around the Little Mermaid, but yeah, it's there, it's cute, but it's I wouldn't go out of my way to go see it, unless it's just because you're interested in seeing the little statue, but it's not going to be a breaking moment for most people. So but it's a cute little statue situated on a rock in the water. Nice, but that's it. Anyways, what I would rather recommend, if you're in the city center, there's a plaza called Torv, which is a pretty old plaza with very old houses. And I do see quite a lot of tourists finding their way to it, but not as many as, for example, Nyhavn is New Haven. It's a place with a bunch of little houses. It's very touristy. This area is less so. It's got a lot of restaurants and just a nice atmosphere because it's more quiet than it's just a little bit past or behind the busy Strøget, the walking street. And it's just it's got a nice atmosphere. There's a huge old tree there, beautiful houses in different colors. It's just a very beautiful place, and it's very, the buildings have been there since 1846, and actually they were rebuilt there because the whole thing burned down in 1728. So there used to be even older buildings. There used to be a monastery there. So there used to be houses. It's always been a place with a lot of history to it. So that's definitely one of the older parts of Copenhagen. Also, when you're in the center of the city, consider going to Tivoli. It's an amusement park that's very, very old. It's so beautiful. It's not cheap, but it's definitely worthwhile if you are into that sort of thing, because it's so pretty. They have so many flowers. It's old. They just make a big effort in turning it into this magical, wonderful place. So definitely worth a visit. It's very close to the main train station in the central train station in Copenhagen, so it's really easy to get to. Also, let me see. Yeah, if you're into the history of Copenhagen, under the parliament, where the politicians rule, there's a museum that actually takes you all the way back to the ruins of the city. So you walk around down under the building, and they actually have a whole little museum down there. It's not as crowded as a lot of other museums, so I think it's definitely worthwhile if you're a little bit interested in the history of Copenhagen. Let's just stick in Copenhagen. I have another suggestion in the end, but also, of course, Christiania. A lot of you have probably heard about it. It's like a little city within the city that's kind of outside of the rules. It's not that they're exempt from the rules of Copenhagen, but they have sort of run in their own direction with how they do things. It's got a lot of cute cafes, and it's actually a pretty nice place to go. I know it sounds bad when I talk about the other stuff, but it's definitely a fun place to go visit if you're out in that area. And when you pass by that and continue out, you'll get to a place called Refshaleøen, or in everyday language, it's just called Reffen. Reffen is a huge food food court place outside. It's got a lot of little places. It's only open in the summer, but it's got a lot of little stores where you can buy all kinds of food, and there's a huge area with chairs and tables and sand and playground and whatnot where you can have your food. I think their prices have cranked up a bit over the last couple of years. I'm a little bit disappointed of that, but it's definitely a fun place to go. Very relaxed, very cool, very just interesting, different vibe out there. So if the weather is nice, it could be fun to go there. You can actually take a little water bus. You can sail from Refn over to the other part of Copenhagen. So that could be kind of fun too. So you can check that out. Yeah, let me see. Yeah, and then staying in Copenhagen, if you go to Nørrebro, as I told you, to the yarn store that's called Nicoline is situated right next to a big cemetery called Assistentens Kirkegård. Assistenten, it means the assistant's church or graveyard. I don't know, or cemetery. I don't know why it's called that actually. But the history of that place is a lot of famous Danes are buried there. For example, H.C. Andersen, the author behind The Little Mermaid, The Ugly Duckling, all those adventures, he's buried there. Also, the physicist Niels Bohr, who is very famous Dane also, is buried there. And there's a lot of history to that place. And in the spring, it's so beautiful because the trees are blooming. It's just a really nice, relaxing place to take a stroll around. So a very popular place for people in the area. So you might go there with your coffee and feel a little bit like a Copenhagen person when you go there. So that could be fun too. Yep. And then lastly, I want to just mention if you're into art, there are definitely art museums within Copenhagen, but there's also one north of Copenhagen. You would have to take a train there, but it's called Louisiana. And the thing about that place is that the museum itself is beautiful and interesting. They always have a lot of interesting exhibits there. It changes over the year, but it's also the location of it. It's situated on a piece of real estate right at the water. When you look out, you can see over to Sweden. There's a big lawn where you can run around and the kids can play, and it's a beautiful place. It's like it's a whole experience just being there. I used to have a pass, like a yearly pass to it, because I wanted to go once in a while just to be there, basically just to sit around and just enjoy the surroundings. So it's a really it's a place I recommend to people. It's just beautiful. So that's if you want to do a little excursion outside of the city, that could also be kind of fun. So those are some of my pro tips for your visit to Copenhagen. I'm sure there's probably a lot of other stuff. If you have any questions, if there's something that's confusing, if you're in doubt about this or that, please leave a comment down below and let me know, and I'll definitely be sure to get back to you. And if I collect a lot of questions, I might do a part 3. I haven't decided yet, but I think this kind of covers what you kind of need to know to get the best trip to Copenhagen. So yeah, I just wish you a really happy, fun trip to Copenhagen if you go. I love my city, as you can probably feel from my videos here. And I just, yeah, if I can share that love for Copenhagen with you, so you get a great trip, fantastic. The only thing that sucks about Copenhagen is the weather. We can't control that, but if you're in luck, you'll get beautiful days here. But we do get a lot of gray days. But yeah, that's just how it is. It's part of being Danish, I suppose. So yeah, before I leave, please subscribe if you like this video. If you find it useful, share it with other friends you know that are going to travel. Even if you're a knitter or not, the tips I gave you today are basically good to know if you go to Copenhagen. So I'd appreciate it if you want to share the video, give it a little bit of love. That could be great. And also remember to get the PDF with the lay of the land of the different areas I talked about today. I'll put the link in the description below. And that being said, I just want to wish you a wonderful day and hope to see you soon in another video. Take care.